Hello again. I stand to honor and to present the Lifetime Achievement Award to Dr. Walter Turner. I could say a lot about Dr. Turner, but one of the things that I just want to say is he is a native of Marin City. He is a founder of the Marin City Community Festival. He is a scholar. He is a professor of social sciences at the College of Marin. And I will allow you to read the rest of his bio on the back of your program. And I'd like to now introduce you to Dr. Walter Turner.
Well, this is nice. You get something. I like that. I appreciate that. I do want to say a couple of things first. My planes must have crossed because I was in Cuba the last 2.5 weeks also. The organization I work with, Global Exchange, and one of our members back there, Kirsten Mahler, is here, and we've worked in Cuba for about the last 20 years plus. I wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention, I see one of the people that is really one of my favorite people in the world here today, and that's Matt Milano, who works over in San Francisco, who, if you want to get a model about equity and building community, he is one of the people you should speak to. Could you raise your hand, Matt? Yeah, he's an amazing person seated there. And I want to thank whoever put the pictures up, because they had a picture of Ella Baker. And if you don't know who Ella Baker is, you need to know who Ella Baker is. One of the founders of SNCC in 1960, even after the SCLC had been formed, she called together the young people and insisted that they keep hungry. I'm very honored for the Marin Grassroots. It is a long distance organization, meaning they've been busy, they've been active for a long time. They're not necessarily sprinters. They're not people who do the 50-yard dash or the 40-yard dash or the 100-yard dash. They've been here for a long time doing the good work. It's very special when someone who knows you gives you an award because they know enough things not to give you an award, and they know enough things to give you an award. I very much appreciate that. My family history is rooted in Marin City. My family came from Louisiana. I think as somebody told me, all black people come from Louisiana. Came here in the migration to the West Coast in the early 1940s and were some of the founders of what we call the Marin City community. I was especially happy to be on a program today with Alicia Garza. Her movement, the work she's done around Black Lives Matter is important. As I'm walking over here, I see an image of a movement in Colombia, South America, one of the largest black populations outside of the United States and Africa, Brazil being the other one, talking about Black Lives Matter. So it really is something that has become a global consciousness. I had the opportunity just a few days ago to speak with Reverend Philip Lawson. If you've ever seen a movie which is called There Is a River, there's a discussion in there with Jim Lawson. And Jim Lawson was with Martin Luther King during those final days of March and April in 1968 before Martin Luther King is assassinated. And one day at the end of March, a group of men came out on the picket line. These were the striking workers from the Mississippi Sanitation Department with a sign that simply said, "I am a man." And they walked and they walked, and that was a turning point because it called people to listen to the humanity of those people, of those 1,300 garbage workers who were striking for a union. And Reverend Lawson, who worked with this movement, who worked in the 1960s, he talked about this. He talked about this kind of crying out, this scream for human rights. And I think sometimes we get it confused because we have the feeling that somehow Martin Luther King was a great African-American leader. He was a great black leader. Martin Luther King was a great leader. He was crying out to the soul of America. And this is one of the things that African-Americans have always done. They've carried this kind of mission of democracy and hope and change on the back of their shoulders. When I found out that I was getting the award, they said it was a Lifetime Achievement Award, the first thing I thought is, well, now what they're trying to say is they need to put me out to pasture. Okay, that, hey, come up, Professor Turner, get this award and get on out of here, make way for other people. That's what usually happens in Lifetime Achievement Award, like your life is over with. And my response to somebody who wrote and told me about it encapsulated, I said, well, why am I getting an award? And I think my response is because I'm black. And when I said it's because I'm black, I'm saying, is it because I've survived? It's because I'm one of the people who didn't find themselves as part of this 2.7 million people who are in prisons or jails. It's because I'm one of these people who didn't find themselves locked into this probation system that so many of our black and brown men and women find themselves in. Is it because I'm not Mike Brown? Is it because I'm not Eric Garner? Is it not because I'm Tarika Wilson or Rakia Boyd or Sean Bell or Bobby Hutton or Emmett Till or Alex Nieto? So that was my first thought when somebody said, you're getting a Lifetime Award, because generally, I work for the ancestors. This is a Marin. And I do what, one of the skills we need to develop is to listen. And when I listen to the ancestors, when I listen to God, when I listen to those spiritual beings, they tell me what to do. So I really don't think of myself as getting an award. I get awards for other people, hopefully. Equity has to be more than just a word. One of the things that happens when you've been around as long as I have, you've heard all the words. You've heard diversity, you've heard inclusion, you've heard affirmative action, you name it. I've heard it over the 30 or 40 or 50 years. Malcolm X said in one of his speeches, he says, I'm not going to sit at the table and watch people eat with nothing on my plate and call myself a diner. Sitting at the table doesn't make you a diner. You're not a diner until there's something on your plate. So when we talk about equity, we need to talk about equity and inclusion and access and not have any buts. I often talk to people in conversation, I agree with you, but we need to cut that. So we don't need to talk about, I agree with equity, but, or I agree with access, but. It's one of the things we're dealing with at the Marin Community College District, where I currently work as a professor. As Eric Garner said when he was on the street in New York, hey, this needs to stop today. Martin Luther King made a speech, his I Have a Dream speech. A couple things about that as I get to a conclusion here before I run over my time. Martin Luther King came into the movement in 1954. When his father called him and told him that he needed him to come down for the march, Martin Luther King said, hey, Dad, I'm in school. I got a girlfriend. I'm trying to be in the sorority. I'm busy. And his father said to him, Martin, I raised you to be a practical Christian, not a theoretical Christian. From the time that Martin Luther King came into the movement in 1954, Martin Luther King is only in the movement 14 years, a very, very short time, before his life was taken on April 4th, 1968 in Memphis. And that speech that he made, listen to when you get an opportunity. I have a dream. Because we know the word, I have a dream, that one day. But the speech is 21 minutes long. So what are the other 20 plus minutes of the speech? And in that speech, Martin Luther King says, because he's talking about that African American and dispossessed people are living in a nightmare. And it's actually Mahalia Jackson that's standing behind him, who said, hey, Martin, tell him about the dream. Tell him about the dream. And so like your regular pastor, your regular reverend, they go back over things they said before. So he reaches back. And that dream comes from another sermon that he had given earlier.
But on this term of equity, on how we move forward, on this turning point that you see with Ferguson, Garner, and black lives have always mattered. It was Frederick Douglass, it was Harriet Tubman, it was I Am a Man, it was Ella Baker, it was Fannie Lou Hamer. It always mattered. Martin Luther King said, now is no time, I'm quoting him, to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make the promise of democracy, not just in words, but in deed. Thank you so very much for this award. I'm so very honored. I'm so very humbled. And from the bottom of my heart, I accept this award for people who are not here and not able to accept this particular award. Thank you very much.